What's going on, everybody? John Eric Poli here with my MMA news, and today's guest will be fighting Aspen Ladd at UFC Vegas 60 on September 17th. Pleased today to be joined by a fellow Lock Haven alumni, Sara McMann. Sarah, thanks for doing this. Nice seeing you. It's always a pleasure doing one of these. So thanks again for making the time to do one of these interviews.
Yeah, no problem.
So let's get right into everything here because there's a lot of moving parts with this upcoming fight here. So you guys were actually booked to fight August 13th in San Diego. Aspen tests positive for COVID. Then you gotta go on all these different, okay, well, where am I gonna exactly fight? Ends up being September 17th, keeping the same opponent. A lot of things happening in between all of that, though. So go ahead and kind of make it clear to everybody kind of all the moving parts that took place to getting the September 17th fight date with Aspen Ladd.
Okay, so originally, when someone falls through for a fight, they will see if they can schedule somebody else. They'll see if someone else will step in. And so I was potentially going to have a different opponent, which could have been anybody. It could have been anybody on the roster. It could have been anybody they pulled from the regional circuit to be in the UFC. So I just was kind of like on pause and like kind of up in the air. And then they said that they couldn't find another opponent, so saw if they could like push me back, but they were going to push me back so far that I was like, look, if this fight's just completely falling through, I mean, I'm always jockeying to get the highest ranked opponents I can. I don't have like a ton of time, so I want every fight to be like, more bang for the buck, which is, the higher ranking girls. So I was like, hey, if this is just going to fall through, then no offense to her, but I want someone ranked higher because I had been called out by Raquel Pennington, who's ranked number like 4 or 5. So I'm like, I'd rather fight her. And she just beat Aspen. So it was like, just better for me. But Raquel had not been cleared yet. So they couldn't schedule that. So then they just managed to find a slot on the September 17th card. So
And it all works out just like that. And I really like the way that you put it on your Instagram when you made the announcement that the fight was pushed back to the 17th. You pretty much said it's like if you're in school and you have a major project due coming up and they push it back a few weeks. So I thought that was pretty interesting to say. 'Cause I know a lot of fighters would be, upset if fights got pushed back because you're dealing with a lot of different things at a training camp. Just talk about how, you were indeed okay with this decision and making that analogy to a school project, just kind of getting pushed back a few weeks.
yeah, so well, I mean, like typically with wrestling before, I competed like every couple months. So or like sometimes even as close as like once a month. So I always train year round. I'm not someone who has to get in shape for my camp. And it's basically like I was already doing all of this training. I had not started really like, harder weight cutting or, changing my food habits like too much. So it really just gave me like a few days to let my body rest a little bit. And then it gave me more time and repetitions towards the things that I was already doing. So for me, I just feel like more dialed in, more, the more time I have to get repetitions and feel comfortable in every area, the more prepared I feel in fights. So it was kind of like, it was like a nice surprise for me just to be a month. Anything longer than that, and it's like, all right, I'm restarting a whole new full camp, and I don't want that.
And obviously, I know that you are in camp right now, kind of just extending it out those 4 or 5 weeks. Just talk a little bit more about the camp and how it's been going as you kind of now start to kind of wrap things up here as you're about a month out from fight night.
So this the wrapping up part for this is the last like month is like so it's gradually building towards like the hardest workouts. So you I usually know like 2 to 3 months before I fight someone. Sometimes like 3 months is like pretty typical. And so you can't immediately, for me, like as soon as I get in camp, you can't be going, like crazy that for the full 3 months because you'll have overuse injuries, you'll have burnout, I mean it's too long to keep a really really high intensity for basically anything, like. So I wait until about 6 weeks, and that's whenever I really start to like ramp it up. So these last 4 weeks is just like work as hard as I possibly can without having injury. So let's
So how's it work like when you get them like to fight week? Is that kind of when you kind of take the, maybe put the brakes on a little bit? Is it kind of like that gradual, I'm going to, bust my ass all the way up until fight week and then kind of just get herself kind of ready into, go in there as whatever close to 100% is?
Yeah, that's definitely when you taper back for a lot of the like the harder work, but you then still have weight cutting. So you have to be able to balance that. But I'm like super disciplined with my diet. So my weight cuts are never really hard. So I actually do get that week to like let my body rest a little bit and feel fresh whenever I fight.
Gotcha. And I know every fighter kind of does things different, so it's always great hearing all the different takes on how everybody approaches the lead up to a fight there. And I do want to ask you now a little bit about Aspen. I know we obviously talked earlier just about all the moving parts with this fight, but just talk about her specifically as an opponent and what she kind of presents and what you're expecting on fight night.
So what I see from her as an opponent, she has good endurance. She'll get in there and she'll keep fighting the full 15 minutes or 25, whatever it be, So like I expect her to have more of like a consistent, constant pace. And then, her ground is like I think more of her forte, where she does a lot of her better work. So for me matching up, I like that kind of matchup. I like jujitsu a lot. I like grappling. I like wrestling, obviously. And so I always like fighting people more in those areas than striking. That's the one that's taking the longest for me to like really become more expert level at.
And what's interesting with this fight, right, you had mentioned before you wanted somebody ranked higher than you. When you look at the division, right, obviously we know that Amanda and Juliana, they're still possibly might be doing their thing. I don't know if the trilogy's next or whatnot. But outside of those two, I mean, essentially, this division's kind of wide open for the taking. So where's this kind of put you into the mix of things here if you are to get a win here? Does it kind of get you in that spot where you might be able to make a big jump, get one of these maybe higher ranked right towards the top people and really put yourself right in the mix of things?
I hope so. You never know, like what the matchmakers are thinking and who already has fights scheduled, and where everything is going to shake out. So I just plan on I keep winning, then they will give me higher ranked opponents. Like I just kind of like I don't look too far ahead.
And a win here too, right? It gives you two in a row. Are you a believer in, like, a lot of times in sports, it seems like momentum is a real thing and that really essentially winning becomes contagious, so to speak here. So obviously a win gets you two in a row. Do you feel that you're kind of, peaking obviously late here in your career and really in a great position here to make a late run at things here?
So um I feel like sometimes that can happen. Like there's two different philosophies. People who win a lot can become complacent as well. So I think that for me, these skills, they're not built on momentum. They're built on, solid work. And so it's not like it's not a fluke thing. It's a consistency thing. If I go out there and I get some spinning heel kick knockout, you know, that would be, sorry, my cats.
I could hear the pause going before.
Yeah, they're like running around playing. Sorry.
You're fine.
Um, I feel like that would be something that would be like, I'm definitely capable of it, but it's not really my forte. And that would be more of like she's just gonna become a knockout artist. Like, probably not. But going out there and taking people down and beating them on the ground, it's not like I just have momentum on my side. It's the skills that I've dedicated 13 years to just coming to fruition. So that I think is what.
And as I hear you talk too, obviously you tell that you're still very motivated in the sport. You still have things you want to accomplish. I know you recently did an interview with one of my colleagues, James Lynch. If I have this correctly, or if I have it incorrectly, please correct me here. Is there one fight? Like, is this your last fight on your UFC contract? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So I guess what's the long-term thing here? Obviously, we know just talking to you here today, you're still motivated. You still want to accomplish a lot of things. Is the plan to hopefully re-sign with the promotion as soon as this fight's over with?
Yeah. Yep.
Here's an interesting question too for somebody that gets into your part of your career, and I see a lot of it. So I know we talked before we came on air here. You said you're not really a fan of following other sports as you are just being active with other sports. But I'm a big Green Bay Packers fan. I'm sure, as you can see in the studio here, and Aaron Rodgers always gets, as he's later in his career, these talks of like, where are you at? Is retirement near? And he made a comment a few years ago that he was on the back nine. That's where he kind of started getting these retirement questions. And he said, which I think is a perfect answer. He said, as long as I'm still motivated, as long as I still enjoy the grind of a full season, going to practice every day, I'm going to keep playing. When that doesn't become fun anymore and I don't enjoy it, is when I'll hang it up. So can you allude to what he's saying there, as that's kind of is the notion that it's not a forcing somebody out at an age, as long as you're willing to keep going to practice and you can still enjoy everything?
So that it's two components, and both him and I are in the same position that we are athletes that are high level, and there are people always like jockeying for your position. So it's not just the desire for it, because some people still have the desire for it, but it's the capability. Not only does he want to do it and it's enjoyable to him, but he still has, the skills that he possessed when he was younger, or even better skills because he has experience. And that is also working in his favor. So, because if he really wanted to do it, but his skills just kind of like going down the tubes, they would find somebody else to replace him. So it's kind of like a little combination of both. And so for me, like, as long as I'm doing well, as long as I'm improving, as long as I'm, executing the way that I want to, then that's also a factor. Like, I'm not going to stay out there and just start getting knocked out by everybody, or, like, that's just not that's not enjoyable to me to do a whole lot of work to go out there and get like drubbed by someone.
Yeah, well, I don't think you have to worry about that because you've looked extremely well in your last few outings here, especially that last win too. It definitely was a nice one for you. I do want to ask this question too, because you mentioned Raquel Pennington's name earlier. I had interviewed Raquel at the beginning of this year, and she was making kind of statements towards how 145, that division is really, I mean, we talked about 135 being open before. There's not even rankings in the 145-pound division. She's kind of keeping herself in like that kind of way of like, I might be able to get a title fight because there's nobody here. Obviously, somebody in your spot, we know how things, you talked before, right? We know who's matched up here, what the matchmakers are thinking. Would 145 ever be in consideration for you, especially with the Raquel Pennington matchup, who kind of has that whole focus on that division type of a thing?
So I think the only time I would really want to compete at 145 is if two things happened. One, I just took a really short notice fight, but it was a really good fight for me, and I wanted to do it because then I could make 145. I could make it like today. So that's something that's not a problem. Or if in fighting I found that my performance doing poor was not due to my age, but the weight cut was really bothering me, then I just basically wouldn't cut any weight at all to go to 145. And it is a possibility, but it's not a likely one. Just because I am able to make 135, I am able to perform really well the next day, and I would just be a lot smaller than them. I think I would still be like, you know, probably close to as strong as them, because wrestling does a lot for you. It definitely helps a lot. But I just it's a possibility, but I do like 135.
So it's definitely maybe would be, I guess, kind of the answer there, but more than likely, I guess 135. I do want to end now, though, talking a few outside the cage things. Most recently, I did see you got to do MMA Roasted. I saw a few clips here or there that have been posted. Just talk about that experience, what that was like of getting to go up and do stand-up comedy.
It was a lot more fun than I expected. I kind of was like I was so much more nervous. I was the memorization, I'm not really that funny of a person. So I was like, well, this could be terrible. But then I kind of just like took a lot of pressure off myself, because I'm like, nobody expects me to be, like a polished stand-up comedian that does this professionally. Like, I'm I'm allowed to go up there and just kind of fumble fuck my way through things and everything. And like, like I'm a fighter. Everyone expects me to be a fighter. Nobody expects me to actually be a stand-up comedian. So it took a little bit of pressure off, but I don't like to do anything not well. I at least put my best effort forward. So I really rehearsed a lot, and it went pretty well. So I was excited about it.
I was gonna say, did you like come up with the whole like script and dialogue of what you're gonna do and go out there? Did you just kind of wing it?
No, no, I absolutely did. And I rehearsed it and I refined my jokes and I talked to other comedians and I had them help me with my punchlines and stuff like so. It was really important to me to not have, Adam Hunter come up with all my jokes and me just go out there and read it, but to like actually come up with my own jokes. But I definitely needed help in like presentation. Comedy is different than storytelling. So it has to be quick and concise, and you got to have timing and know when to have the punchlines and how to pause. And so that was just an interesting thing to play around with.
And I like that you put all that effort into it too, of talking to other comedians and everything else there. So you can tell that definitely delivered with the audience. Now to end things, though, I do want to actually go to a Lock Haven conversation. I know I opened up saying that we're both Lock Haven alums. Yesterday, when I got this interview set up, I went right to Carl Poff and I told him that I was going to be interviewing you today. And he wanted me to say that you are one of his all-time favorites that he's ever coached, and made sure that the message got relayed that he wanted to send all of his love your way. So just talk about Carl a little bit and what he's meant to you, and just that message there.
So I've known Carl since I was in high school, actually. I came up to the camp when I was a junior in high school, and man, like they just accepted me. I was in an all male camp. There was 800 boys, and I was the single female in it, and they just treated me like so well. Like they were so encouraging towards wrestling, and I ended up my freshman year. I went to Minnesota Morris. It was it was the only school that had women's wrestling in the country. And I just didn't. It wasn't the right environment for me. And the only thing I could think of, I was like, I'm gonna go to Lock Haven because they were just so great and they just had such a love for wrestling. And no matter who it was, uh, that I felt like that was the place that I was going to become the best version of myself. And Coach Poff, like he'd come down and teach practices, but he does so much more behind the scenes work that nobody ever gets to see that helps the program like flourish. So, he's really great on both ends of it, the business side and the coaching and the wrestling aspect side. So it was awesome to be underneath somebody that really knew how to be a leader.
Yeah, Carl Poff's a great guy. I had him as a professor, and when you were saying there too about like the whole other side of things that he does, I didn't even realize. So I had him in class when he was talking about being a head coach, and you're dealing with different alumni and donors and fundraising and all the things that go into being a head coach that people don't even realize. And he's such a great guy, and he did a great job at it. And I hope he's enjoying retirement down in North Carolina. One last LHU question for you, though, because we did an interview once before and we got onto a Lock Haven topic. We really went into detail about the wrestling, and then we had some Wi-Fi troubles, and this question I really wanted to ask and got cut out. So here it goes. When we were at Lock Haven, I know you were there before I was, but the kids that are there right now really have it easy because McIntyre's not around, Gross Hall's not around. So these kids don't have to walk up the big mountain to go back to their dorm rooms that day. I'm sure you could relate to this and just how easy these kids have it now.
Oh yeah, that was like you would stay down for like 4 hours in between classes to not walk up the stairs. You're like, well, I'm just going to sit in the calf as long as possible. No. And then we had to do conditioning on those stairs. So
Oh, geez.
I know it was like, it's the devil. So it definitely like that was definitely really rough, that like climbing that hill. But I think it kept everybody in shape in college.
I was going to say, anybody that stayed at McIntyre or any of those dorm rooms up there, there was no such thing as the freshman 15, because by the time you climb all those flights of stairs to get back to your dorm room, I think you
Yes.
burned off everything you just ate in the cafeteria.
Yes, carrying all your stuff, this huge textbooks and thick notepads and stuff for sure.
Yeah, no wonder why I think the enrollment's been kind of going up there. All the kids don't have to walk anymore now, so everybody would rather go on a nice flat campus as opposed to the hill that it used to be there. Sarah, great conversation as always. Really appreciate the time. Last thing before we roll out, social media management, sponsors, anybody to give a shout out to? Floor is yours. Take it away.
So I'm managed by CAA with Jennifer Goldstein. I have my own gym. It's Precision Academy up in Sacramento, California. If anybody wants to come check that out. let's see, my social media, Instagram is just Sara McMann. Like pretty simple. So
All right, Sarah, again, thanks so much for all the time. Really appreciate it. Always great talking with you. And it's always great talking with a fellow Lock Haven alum there. So, again, thanks so much. And thanks for everybody that watched today's interview. Really appreciate it. If you like today's interview, please go to the bottom. Make sure you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And keep going to MyMMANews.com, checking out all of our great work. Go to our social media pages. Give us a like and a follow on there as well. We'll see you later, everybody.